Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Blade, the series, Season 1, Episode Dos. As if we're going to get another season out of this, but, really, for me, I'm just meh. If anything, I always try to review shows and, say season whatever. I always just do it that way, and I've just been kind of just tailor-made to do it that way. It doesn't even matter to me if that could affect how this show or whichever gets searched. I don't, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going in, I'm well, I'm always going to put what season it is, even if the show only lasted for, 3 episodes and then it was killed. I'm just going to keep that pattern. So, going on into this episode, again, it's even heavier Krista Star episode. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because really in this episode we get to see her in a lot of nice looking dresses and whichever, but still, it's we have Blade even less in this episode. He just kind of pops in from time to time, but Kirsten is really carrying the heavy lifting here in this show, especially within this episode. So, let's go on to kind of tee it up for people, because more than likely, you can check this show out on Tubi. If you don't already know, you can go on there and watch that there. But yeah, you're already here. You've already probably watched the pilot episode of me gabbing about that, so I think it's about time to gab about a cryptic way about talking what happens into this episode, and then deep dive into what actually happens within this episode and go into spoilers. Not as if I'm going to have a completely different, you know what I mean. So let's go on. So, we have Blade fighting some people in this episode, and I'm yay, but where are you 80% of this episode? Where are you 80% of it? We even have Krista, who is gun pointing somebody and doing 2 roles in one. Where she is trying to sway Marcus Van Skyler, and then she's on a rooftop 5 minutes later just going hey, I'm gonna shoot you down, I'm gonna get you. And so Marcus is okay, well, that's great. Well, I'm just going to start, dodging all my way around. To where eventually we have Krista, who is in a little bit over her head within this episode, to where eventually she is to be turned into this thing that I guess Kirsten barely knew about in the first episode, called a vampire? Vampire? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. But we go on here, and so we really have Detective, God, what is his name again? We actually have Detective Brian Boone, who seems to be getting the boot in this episode. Isn't that great? But on top of that, we also have, really just Marcus's sister? I'm assuming it's his sister. I hope it's his sister, because if it's not, then man, is that going to be weird. For me to say, oh yeah, it's his sister, and then later on I'll find out, oh, it's actually his so-and-so person. But yeah, so we also have Marcus's a sister that seems to be hogging up a lot of spotlight in this episode. It seems that Marcus is a person that does not get his hands dirty, and so we have this girl named Chase who is kind of getting her hands much more dirtier than Marcus is. Plus, we also seemingly have some goon of Marcus's that is going to have some miracle elixir put inside of his bate and go and try to take out this thing called Blade. And so we'll kind of see how that goes out into this episode. really to this point, like, you know what? Like, I can almost go into really and truly just spoilers about every single one of these episodes because really, like, after the first episode of telling everybody how it goes, then, like, everything after this should just be like, okay, I should just go over the episode and just go into spoilers right away because, really, like, it's after the first episode, like, you're in or you're not. You're into the show, or you could care less. You're watching these reviews, or you just like the way that I lay them out to everybody. Like, yeah, I didn't like this show either, and so I like the way that this guy is just beating the crap out of this show and just saying how it wasn't good at some points or another. Here's my thing, though. This is writing-wise an interesting show, but the guy that is hogging up the title screen isn't in the episodes enough for me to enjoy that being a thing in this show. So Blade is not in here nearly enough, and I understand why this show probably got the boot the way it did, because they're like, yeah, you kind of clickbaited us with this show, and I'm not watching this second season of this show. Like, I know that Kirsten Starr, the actress that plays her, is really attractive, but, like, I'm sorry, but you have needed to have, like, a little bit more of that Blade. You know what I'm saying? A little bit more of that Blade. So, let's go into spoiler time about this episode, because really, I had gone into just kind of making fun of this episode. So I think it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. I'm trying something different with the spoiler things this today. Like, I was like in one like video, I think I was like slapping the slapping the screen. Like, I was I don't know, I was trying something different. So, spoilers now. So in the very beginning of this, we have this episode where the last had left off with Krista really taking up probably more than 80% of this episode. So we have Krista, who is going on to see Marcus Van Sciver at this banquet, gala, party, whichever. And so we are to have Marcus Van Sciver saying that he is to go in this location. It feels like he is going back in time. Like he has been alive forever. Because if you've ever seen the show Highlander, you'll ask who wants to live forever, but then you'll also ask, why should I care about Krista trying to smooth over Marcus? Because we have Krista who is going and trying to put a tracking device somewhere on Marcus's clothes, and I'm like, why? By the time that this guy takes these clothes off and realizes there's a tracking device on him, he's going to be like scrambling, and it's like, dude, we need to get out of here. Let's go somewhere else. Wouldn't that have happened, obviously? So, we go on, and so we have Krista, who is trying to put a tracking device on Marcus. Hey, Marcus, you want this tracking device? And Marcus is like, no, not today. We have Chase, who is to kind of cut in the middle of both Marcus and Krista as Krista is trying to deliver this tracking device. And so we eventually have Krista that is just trying to butter Marcus up because she's already having to try to figure out a way to talk to him longer. And so we have Krista, who is to mention to Marcus, well, it seems that everybody is saying that you're going to be the savior of this town. And so Marcus is like, I like that. How about you and me just go along and just talk separately? And so we end up having Marcus and Krista just talking it out. And so we really have it to where, Krista is really buttering up that Marcus man. And so Marcus is to eventually go and whisper sweet nothings to Krista and let her know that, one, he knows exactly who she is. Because Krista is to mention that she is Catherine, and Marcus is like, well, don't you mean Krista? Krista Starr? Like your brother, Zack Starr? You know, the one I killed? No, he didn't go that far, but man, did he almost get that. So, we have Marcus, who is to blow Krista's cover, and Blade and Shen are hearing this, and they're like, like, God damn, like, she already, like, blew her cover, like, Marcus must know everything about everything in this world. So, we have Krista, who her cover is obviously blown, and so we have where Krista is now on this other rooftop to go and have a sniper rifle at Marcus's face. And so Marcus is trying to dance around and try to like kiss babies and hug people and all kinds of weird, bizarre stuff. And while he is to do that, he is to get a bizarre package delivered to him with a headset for him to talk to Krista. And so we have Marcus talking to Krista, and Krista is sniper rifling him. And so we have Chase, who is to eventually, while Krista and Marcus are talking, Chase is to figure out exactly where Krista is, and Marcus spotted where exactly she was, and he's like, oh, hello, like, I see you. And so Krista was spotted fairly quickly. So Chase eventually goes and knocks Krista out. And so we have Chase, who is Chase and Marcus's goons is to collect Krista. And so Marcus is thinking, like, you know what? Like, this woman is actually rather valuable. Like, I don't know, there's something about her that is just telling me, like, she was in the military, and, like, there's just something about her that I think she could really bring value to the House of Chthon. And so we end up having Detective Boone coming in to this, like, it looks like some, butcher house, like the way it's kind of designed. And plus also, we eventually start to see, like, a plethora of humans that are all kind of hanging like a worm on a hook or whatever in these bags to, I guess, showcase that this is eventually the vampire's food source or any number of other things. So, and plus that's also where they test this bizarrish serum that in the very first episode, when they are to test this serum to be put into somebody's body, they pour this thing of garlic on this person and immediately they die. And so in this second episode, they end up putting this serum thing into this guy's neck and he becomes super vampire. So let's back. So we have Marcus, who is to, like, before we get to the whole butcher house thing, let's go and let's turn Krista. So we have Marcus, who takes Krista to his humble abode, his apartment complex. And so he is to tell her that biting her won't exactly 100% make her a vampire. There's no guarantee of that. So what ends up happening is they end up taking a needle to Marcus, taking his blood and transferring his blood into Krista. And so we are to have Krista go and, I guess, be declared dead and put in some body bag somewhere. And so Krista is to eventually waken, becoming a vampire and almost attacking some security guard, and then running out of this facility to have Marcus and his men meet Krista to be like, oh, hey, buddy, seems like old times, huh? Like, come on down, you're the next contestant on... You're never going to be in the in the daylight ever again. Come on down. So we have Marcus going with Krista, and so we are to have Krista sleep at night and wake during the day. Krista is to wake up and try to walk around in her room to eventually realize that her one of her windows is slightly open and it's during the day and she is hit by the sunlight, and so her foot is to burn, but then Krista is to push her feet back to the shade, and her foot immediately heals. And so Marcus is like, "Well, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that, like it's daylight." And so we eventually have Marcus, who is to mention that he doesn't like to actually sleep during the entire day. Like, it just doesn't seem very productive. And so we end up having so we are to just push on. So we have Marcus, Chase, and Krista all going to this butcher shop like place, and to basically tell Detective Boone, you know what, with Krista being such a huge asset now, you know what, we don't need Detective Boone anymore. Like, he's kind of like he's just kind of like a guy that we just no longer need. I'm like, dude, this is your connection to the police force, and he's not good enough for you? Like, at least he's, like, you probably could have just bought and paid for, like, the whole police department or whatever, but you just want to get the one detective that keeps bringing hose to the butcher shop for your vampires to nibble on. Because we have Detective Boone, who yet again goes and tries to bring this hoe to this butcher house place. And so we have Marcus, who's like, well, like, if anything, like, we need to have our animals get a much better diet. And so we have Marcus, who looks at this woman and like kind of touches her head and then snaps her neck and then kills her. And then like Marcus is just like, ha ha, and then he leaves. No. So we have Detective Boone, who is coming in to realize that he is going to get a little snack of his own, meaning that he is going to be eaten by Krista. So we have Blade, who is actually doing a thing in this show somewhere, because Blade is to talk to Shen. And so we have Blade, who is needing to find where Krista is, because eventually Blade goes and finds the crazed vampires and ends up starting to kill them all off. And then eventually Blade comes back to this location to try to give the serum to Krista. Because Shen is mentioning, it's like, dude, like, you need to get her the serum before she is to have her first meal, or otherwise, like, it'll clear her head for a couple hours, but there's no guarantee that she won't strike again. And Blade is like, no, like, if anything, the serum will help, will stop her. And Shen's like, yeah, I don't think so, because Shen doesn't know anything about anything. Like, this is just a guy that just hits buttons on a computer and tra-la-la-la-la, hope for the best. Because Shen, like, seemingly doesn't know anything about anything. Like, he just, like, makes serum and can't figure out how to make an inhaler, and is just kind of just like rolling the dice and flipping the coin. And you're like, yeah, I guess it's coming up heads. I guess so. we have Blade, who is to make it into this butcher shop. I'm assuming that's what it is. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to say that it is. So we have Blade coming in here to watch Krista Starr suck the life out of Detective Boone. And Blade's like, no, Krista, I could save you. So we end up having Blade, who is going through this factory and just killing all these vampires, and eventually he ends up going back there to make sure that he wipes everything out. And so, while everybody is running from Blade or trying to fight Blade, but then trying to scramble and get the heck out of there, we eventually have Blade who grabs onto Krista and gives her the serum, and then eventually Blade is to try and have Krista meet him again in where Zack Starr's headstone is. So we have Marcus, who is going and getting a concoction via this doctor to be put in yet another vampire. And it seems that the doctors are like, well, we don't have any more, like, Blade killed all of our other, like, small minion, whatever, vampires. And so we have Marcus's goon is like, well, hey, like, how about you give it to me? Like, let me serve you, Marcus. And so we have Marcus's goon getting this serum into his neck. And so he becomes super vampire. And so we have this super vampire. I don't know his actual name. He's just some goon of Marcus's, and so it would probably take a fairly long time to find out where exactly his name is in this whole entire thing. So I would probably be wasting my time. Yes, I probably would, because I'm not going to. So super vampire is what his name will be for this thing. So we have Super Vampire going up to Blade, and so Blade is like, ha ha ha, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and just, like, kill you. One shot, ha ha ha, you're dead. And so we have this Super Vampire who is to get shot, and then immediately he comes back up, and Blade is like, what? And so Blade fires into this guy's head, and so this guy just rips off this thing that Blade is to hit him with, and it heals rapidly. And so we have Blade, who is, like, trying to take this thing out, and he is struggling. And so Blade is just trying everything, and eventually we have Blade, who ends up just having to forcibly run off because this super vampire guy is just way too strong. And so Blade ends up just running off. And so we have Marcus, who is to tell that this guy is going to be his favorite, his best friend. And because this guy is the only thing that is between Blade and Marcus, this guy is it. So we are to push on. So we have Blade, who is re-meeting up with Krista at Zack Starr's grave, because Krista goes back into Marcus's apartment complex. She ends up going out the window and jumping from one building to the other, Matrix style. And so Krista is like, oh my god, this is like, these powers are sweet, like, kind of thing. She's like, wow, whoa. She's Neo from the Matrix. So we have Krista, who goes to her brother's grave to just mourn his loss again, because we have Krista, who, after she was getting the blood transfusion from Marcus, she was starting to see some flashbacks. She was starting to see flashbacks at some point of her and her brother at some playground that they had gone to. And we also have Krista, who was seeing these dreams of Marcus, and that he was to be attacked by his settlement that he was in was being attacked by some tribe, and I guess that this tribe had turned him into a vampire. And so Krista is at this grave, and so Blade is to go and grab her and to just kind of see if she's like, is she reset herself? Is she thinking clearly, kind of thing? And Krista convinces him, like, yeah, I'm fine. So we have Blade who gives Krista a serum and tells her, like, take this twice a day and call me in the morning, kind of thing. And so Krista's like, okay, sure, wonderful. And so we also have Blade that has to tell Krista that Zack Star was working under him. And so Krista's like, wait a minute, so I'm working for the same person that my brother did, and like, am I gonna end up just the exact same way that he ended up, kind of thing? And so Blade is like, well, like, you and your brother are completely two different people. Like, if anything, Marcus had mentioned that Zack had kind of pushed like too far, and really that just like wasn't really all that true. So Krista gets to know a little bit of information about what had happened with her brother, and that kind of just really just ends this episode. So with that said, I am going to also end this review. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.